You're listening to Investify, preaching financial independence and assisting investors to achieve a more flexible and free lifestyle through smart financial planning and real estate investing. If leaving the corporate world and jumping into this thriving industry is what you desire, tune in and listen to stories of like-minded individuals who made the leap to financial independence. Equip yourself with the right tips and tricks to start your real estate journey, making active or passive ventures that are highly profitable and rewarding.
Welcome to another episode of Investify, and today it is just me, your host, Ali Garced. I am interviewing David Lecko, and you can find him on Instagram, Lecko. He quit corporate at age 26. He left his W-2, and 3 years later, with the power of real estate, he became a millionaire and financially independent. So we're covering exactly how he did that from his very first rental property all the way into where he is now, having built an app called DealMachine, which I'm sure you've heard of. If not, also give DealMachine a follow on Instagram. We're diving deep into how exactly he did it. If you get any value from this, because I know that you will, hit us up with a 5-star review on Apple. That's all we ask in return. This podcast is free for you. And now on to the show.
What's up, everyone? I got a super excited announcement to make. The FI team is throwing their first ever house hacking intensive. This is going to be in Denver, Colorado, April 5th to April 7th, and we are going to dive deep in house hacking. You are going to learn with a bunch of other future house hackers or current house hackers themselves how to analyze markets, how to find a deal in a neighborhood, how to find the correct house, the correct layout, how to run the numbers, how to build your team of agents, of contractors, of property managers, you name it. And we're going to do all of this together in person in Denver. That's going to be just part of it. It's going to be even better when we actually go to houses in Denver. A couple of my personal house hacks that I've already done, some people on our team's house hacks that they've done, as well as some that are on the market right now. So you can see the before and the afters of what a house hack might look like. This is going to be the first time we throw this event. I don't know when we're going to be throwing it again. Make sure you go to thefiteam.com/workshop to buy your tickets. Tickets are just $297, but if you use the code INVEST2FI, you'll be getting 20% off, and the whole ticket is refundable when you do a deal. So that's right. So go to thefiteam.com/workshop, put in the coupon code INVEST2FI to get your 20% off. And then when you do a deal, when you close on your next deal or your first deal, you will be getting that back 100%. Hope to see you guys all in Denver. I can't wait to meet y'all in person, and I'm super excited for this event. We'll see y'all there.
David, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I'm excited to interview you.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, Ali.
So tell me about yourself. Let's start with, financial independence. Let's start with your first deal. How did you get into your first deal in real estate in general?
Yeah. So the first deal was actually a 90-day-old listing, and I bought it for $194, and I rented out 3 of the bedrooms and lived in it. So my mortgage payment was like $1,300 a month. I rented each bedroom out for $550. So I know, just like Craig did the house hacking approach, and immediately was cash flowing $200, but most importantly, just got rid of a huge expense that I was, needing to worry about if I were to quit my job. So that was like step one. So it's been a great deal. I did live that way for a couple of years, and then I did a few more, which I can tell you about. But I still own the property today, and it's been an independent rental as well now in the last few years.
That's awesome. Yeah, house hacking is the way to go. What year was this, and how old were you?
I was 2017, so that would have been like 26, 27 years old. And yes, Zillow had a filter to look at properties that were 90 days old. I don't think it's there anymore, but that's how I found it.
That I think you could find out like a different kind of roundabout way than it used to be. back then. What drew you to a property that was listed for 90 days on the market? Because a lot of first time home buyers, they want what's fresh, what's hot. They want to see the nice and glamorous, but you don't pay attention to all the other potential homes just sitting there.
Okay, yeah. So rewinding a little bit before this is I was working for a company with 20 employees, and I was the first person they hired to start their tech division. And so I was working a lot because I was really wanting to work and learn as much as possible at a young age. But I got to this point where 80 hours a week just like wasn't that fun anymore. So I started asking around. It's like the owner works a lot less than I do. So I noticed he has 5 rental properties. Like, why does he do that? Because I've been investing in the stock market, building up my Roth IRA. And he said, you've got to, if you get a house that cash flows and you manage it well, it'll always bring you cash. And he wanted to retire by 40. I thought that sounded pretty nice too. And he's like, well, your stocks have gone up and down, haven't they? And I was like, yeah, they have. So I was turned on to the idea of rental properties, by that guy that I worked for. And I was looking for properties. I knew they needed a cash flow so I could hold them forever no matter what happened. And the mortgage payment on all these listed properties was going to be more than what they could rent for. So I could see the mortgage estimate on Zillow. I could see the rental estimate on Rentometer. And so I knew I needed to get a good deal in order to have this as a property that would cash flow as a rental in the future. And so that's why I went looking for a property that was not selling, because I thought I could get a better deal on that.
That's so smart. I love that. Did you use an agent, and what market was this in?
It was in Indianapolis, and I did use an agent. And that was one of the last times I ever used an agent until recently. And I'll go into that. But so this agent was also like a new agent. I think it might have been the first transaction they did. And so it kind of left me with like a little bit of a bad taste. But I've actually done deals with an agent this year from somebody who's really experienced. So I can tell, how much that really plays into it and can be really valuable.
100%, especially when you're buying a property for the first time. You don't know what you don't know. Like the level of service that agent gives you, that's kind of what that client then expects, that's normal, but every agent is so different on what they provide, the type of, mentorship or education along the way. So I'm glad that you found one that works for you and isn't using you as their guinea pig.
Yeah. Well, you have to start somewhere. I just didn't know at the time. So it was a learning experience. And so I'm always thankful for those.
Let's dig back into those numbers again. So you were cash flowing already from the start?
Well, I rented out 3 of the rooms, $550 a piece. And my mortgage payment was with taxes and insurance was $1,300 a month. So yeah, I was making about $200 extra on top of that and living for free, which was an amazing deal for me. Normally a rental property, I'd want to cash flow a little bit more, but I was living in the property. So that's why it was such a great deal.
Nice. How did you find the tenants?
Actually, it was all my coworkers. So I just asked if they wanted to move into the property, and then they did. And then I quit that job. So that's how I found it. Yeah. So got that mortgage on my W-2 and then quit.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I was going to ask, because you purchased this around the same time that you quit. Okay, so you got the loan while you were still with the W-2. And was that on purpose, or did work get to the point?
Oh, yeah. I knew I needed a W-2 in order to get that loan for sure.
Perfect. And how did it go after you quit, where you were still living there? Were things awkward?
Yeah, so I've had a few roommates in the past, and so I've had a lot of good ones. This one was like more problematic than others. There were arguments about whose ketchup should we be using in the fridge. So we ended up having like 4 ketchups in one fridge, which takes up so much valuable space. Yeah. And it wasn't like a great roommate, situation. And I don't think it had to do with being coworkers, although I didn't have to see them at work anymore. So that probably made things easier. It just be very intentional about who you do invite to live, because it's not just income. It's actually somebody you spend a lot of time with, when you're in the same house. So that would just be my recommendation when somebody's going to be doing house hacking, which is a great strategy.
Yeah, definitely. At least when you're coworkers too, you can take a look at their desk, see how organized they are. Are they messy? Do I want to live with them?
That's a good tip.
Yeah. Very, very similar to whenever like you're showing a property, you kind of take a peek at their car. What does their car look like? It's just a glimpse into their life. Or go to their property. Hey, and so before we meet at my property, let's meet at yours. Because the way that they treat their current one is probably how they're going to treat your property.
I completely agree. It's like you're an expert or something.
Just spitting stuff. I want to talk about the mental transition going from a W-2 at, age 26, where you were making steady income, to quitting. Dive deeper on that.
Yeah. So I actually wanted to quit right away because I knew and could see a path with real estate investing. And I felt like the time I'm spending in my W-2, although it's earning me steady income, is just really taking away from what I could accomplish if I were on my own. Now, the company only had me on their tech team, so they paid me 4 times my salary to stay extra 3 months. And so if you think about that, that means I made my entire year's salary in a 3-month window once I had said I need to go and pursue this, business idea. Thankfully, that money came in really handy because my business didn't quite go as quickly as I thought it would at first. So that provided a really nice cushion for me to get on my feet and get that real estate business going. So I worked 80 hours a week there, and then I became a recluse and worked 80 hours a week at my kitchen table. The only difference was I didn't have to shower or comb my hair. You know what I mean? So that could be that was a great season. I think that served me well. But I was missing a little bit of a routine there, once I became an entrepreneur full time. So now I don't remember what I did back then, but now I always get up and go work out at 7:00. I love having that routine. So by the time 8:00 rolls around, I've already showered, I've already eaten breakfast, I've already had a great workout. And I feel like that sets me up really well to do whatever else I want for the rest of the day.
That's amazing. I like how when we interview people, on these podcasts, people usually have to add a side hustle in order to get to the point of finally quitting. Sometimes, they house hack as well, but you did it with just house hacking. Usually people are like, okay, let me add to my income, but also taking away your biggest expense, which is housing, can go so far. And even though it's not necessarily more income, it's having reduced those expenses. That's still FU money.
Yeah. And I didn't need grocery money because I could just drink my roommate's ketchup.
Of course, naturally.
They'll never know.
How will they ever find out? They're not going to find out.
Right. But yeah, so I mean, it was very limited expenses. I had a paid off $4,000 Honda Accord that was, rusted. So as long as that didn't break, I was pretty good to go. And I had money saved up thanks to that big, boost in salary the last 3 months. So that really my only expense was food pretty much, because I wasn't going on trips, wasn't going on dates, didn't have any responsibilities but myself. And that I didn't have that, housing costs.
Yeah. What was that conversation like with your boss for that, salary in 3 months? How did that go?
Oh, he suggested it. I said, I got to go. Yeah. And I knew this was my path. And I just was like, I got to go. And then they're like, please stay. We'll pay you this much if you would just agree to stay for an extra 3 months.
Wow. Oh my God. Again, that just the power of FU money, who knew that you can make your entire salary in 3 months right when you're at the point where you're just like, you know what? No, enough is enough.
Yeah. If it was a huge company, it wouldn't have been that conversation. But I did happen to be the only tech person on that team, for this company I worked for.
They clearly needed you more than you needed them.
I think so. I felt good. It feels good to be needed.
Yeah, right. Okay, so then you leave. At what point did you move out of that property that you were living in?
So I started dating a girl, and so pretty much actually did not stay in that house after the first 2 months. So we dated for 9 months, kind of stayed at her place most of the time, but we broke up, and then I re-entered the scene, which is my house, but my roommate's been living in it without me for 9 months, and that did not go well because they had their routines and systems and habits that I was not typically involved with. And so again, it wasn't like the easiest going situation. So it created problems. So I quickly, went looking for my own apartment, after that was kind of, like I might have left a dish in the sink, and then you get that like big paragraph text, and you're like, paragraph texts are never good. And your stomach just has that big pit in it. Like, oh man, I got to read this whole thing. So it was just obvious that we weren't like jiving well, and so luckily the business picked up a little bit more. I was able to go get my own apartment, soon after re-entering that house. So I personally didn't actually live in it too long, like probably a year. That was my official address for a year. Man, that should be like a new hidden secret to financial freedom. It's like, go get a girlfriend you can live with for free. I'm just kidding.
Get an owner occupied house, move in for 2 months, get a girlfriend, move out.
That's right.
Did you use the funds to pay for that house through the stocks that you had been investing in?
Stocks were in the Roth IRA, so I've never withdrawn those. So yeah, no, I had saved up some money outside of the Roth IRA as well from working that 3 months.
Okay, got it. And then at that point, your expenses, you have no car, you have until you moved into your apartment.
No car payment. Yeah.
Yeah, no car payment. That's what I meant. Okay, nice. So your living expenses were very, very low. It was just food and entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. And which you said you barely even had entertainment. This is sacrifice.
I was working a lot.
Yeah. In order to retire at 29. So take us through that period. So you're looking for an apartment to move into up until the age of 29 where you are financial independent. What did that period look like?
Yeah. So then I actually started doing these like BRRRR strategy deals where I bought a house for $4,000 that I sent a mailer to because it looked run down. He called me back. He wanted to do a deal. I offered $4,000, and then I got credit cards with no interest payments for a year, used those to fix it up for $60,000. And then it's worth $120, and it's renting for $1,000 a month. So that's how I did the very next deal. And then you can get your money, because the difference between $4,000 plus $6,500, $75,000 all in, but it's worth $120. So you could actually, you have all that equity there. If you got a traditional financing where you put 75 loan to value, then you basically have a free cash flowing house, and you have that money that you can go pay off the credit cards, and or like go do another one of those deals again. And so I did not have the W-2 to get that traditional financing, but I caught the eye of somebody that I knew in Chicago who had a big W-2, and he was like, man, I want to invest in Indianapolis. And I wouldn't recommend doing this with just any old person, because a partnership is more serious than a marriage, I think, in a lot of ways. I haven't been married, but just my opinion. And so then we basically, I would go find deals like this that were run down, and then he would provide the money to buy it, the money to fix it up. And he would also put the mortgage in his name, but he'd make me a 50% owner. So I had to provide no money. I just had to go find it, manage the rehab, and then manage the rental. So that was how we did like the next 3 or 4 houses. So I created equity for myself and more cash flow without needing any money at all. And for him, way better deals than he could find in Chicago. And also such great deals. Like I said, we were just recycling money. So it was just like a free cash flowing rental for both of us.
That's amazing. How many deals did you both do together?
4.
Okay. And what was that like increase in net worth or cash flow like with those 4 deals?
Yeah. So I would say it was cash flowing $35,000 a year that we were splitting. But that's net after taxes, insurance, mortgage, all that. And so, if my apartment was like $12,000 a year, I mean, in Indianapolis, it's not that expensive. That cash flow would cover my apartment that I was then living in. Yeah. So, and then, but what's amazing is, just holding those properties while they cash flowed, they appreciated like $500,000 in the like next 4 or 5 years. So that was like the really, nice icing on the cake that ended up being the bulk of what the profit has been so far. We still hold the properties today, but it's nice because they are all like 50% equity or more.
How did you find this partner?
Well, so I actually worked an internship with him at AT&T in Atlanta, Georgia in the summer of 2020. No, I was in college. So I graduated in 2008, graduated college in 2012. So it must have been 2011. And we had just become friends since that internship in 2011. and stayed in touch. We even went to the Clemson Bowl together. He went to Auburn. So I had never been to like Southern football games and stuff. So we just knew each other. And Chicago to Indianapolis isn't that far. So we would even probably see each other like once a year, go for a visit and whatnot. So we had a base level of, relationship before ever having some opportunity to do business together. So that's how I met him.
Okay. Yeah. Someone that you had already met, known, trusted, developed.
He was smarter than me. He went to some Ivy League school and he had this like really high paying job in finance where he was like trading stocks for a big hedge fund, so he was like making a lot of money. And he's real smart. But what I'm impressed by is it was my hustle that allowed me to provide that value where he wanted to put his money into. Does that make sense? So that's like what I think everybody has available to them is putting in the hustle, no matter like how smart you are or what your background is. And so that was, I think, the shining like part of the story that I'd want people to hear, that they're hearing this.
Yeah. Yeah. That you don't have to have the money. You can have the time. And if you have the skill set, to find a deal.
Correct. And I used to think whoever had the money had the power, but it's whoever can find the great deals has more power. It's hard to put your money in a reliable place that gives you really good returns. And I could tell our returns, cash on cash, have been 22% year over year. And the reason why I know that is because I use this software called Stessa that like plugs in and connects to your bank account. So it can tell you the cash flow and also appreciation factored into that cash on cash return. And so for a lot of these properties, we kind of have zero cash in it. So it's like infinite returns. But it's nice to see that calculation.
Yeah. Let's dive deeper into the process of finding a deal. Where does one even start?
So yeah, the number one place that I would start, there's so many ways to look for rental properties, by the way, or just really great deals that you could wholesale or flip. And so I just did this episode on my podcast breaking down the 25 motivated sellers and what order you should approach them in. The very first one is driving for dollars. And so that's going to take a little bit of time to look for those rundown homes, but it's going to help you learn your area. And it's also going to be something that nobody else is doing that has money that's expanding and scaling this business. So you'll not be competing with people on price and allow you to buy deeper when you're looking for those deals. So that's what I did. That's what I was doing.
Driving for dollars.
Yeah. You just look for a house that looks run down and then you like write it down. Then you look up who owns it and send them a letter. And then you say like, do you want an offer on your house? And when they say, yeah, then you just like chat with them about, what the next step is. Why do they want to sell it? And so that's like the number one way. And that's episode 78 of the DealMachine podcast, by the way. If anyone wants to check that out. You just look for anything that's like, biological growth on the house, falling off gutters, blue tarp on the roof, just anything that doesn't look as nice as the rest of the neighborhood. So you just build a list of those properties. And this is where people get hung up the most is they don't actually add enough. So you have to add like 300-400 of those in order to find a deal in a short amount of time frame. So that would be my recommendation for starting out.
Okay. What does the letter say when you send them a letter?
Is this your house? I'm interested in closing. I can close quickly and with cash if you're interested. Give me a call or text and have a great day.
Awesome. And then they give you a call and they're like, hey, got your letter. What is this? What do you say?
I'll say, do you want an offer on your house?
Sure, if it's the right offer.
Yeah. So honestly, if it says that, then I would explain, that I specialize in, properties that need a lot of work and situations that have to be, short time frame. And I wouldn't be the highest, offer for them. If that sounds like this is their situation, then we should continue talking. But otherwise, they should check out Allie, the agent, on Instagram and just ask her to sell their house.
Love that. Okay, sweet. So you mentioned around 400 to get a deal. Was that your numbers or was that just theoretical?
Yeah, in Indianapolis, I'd recommend finding 400 rundown houses. So here's the thing. Like I just did a deal today from an offer I made like 6 months ago. And so if you're going to start a business, you need to add a lot of properties to swing the numbers in your favor that you find somebody who actually does want an offer on their house like today. because these people have received a postcard from me every month. So that call I just got from 6 months ago, that they're receiving the sixth postcard. So if you want to do a deal sooner than later, just add, increase the number of rundown properties that you're finding. So that's why I say 400. It seems like a lot, but you should do that. If the market's higher, like in San Diego or on the East or West Coast, you got to add like 1,000, because the higher the market is, the harder it is to get that deal, but the bigger spread you can make. So 15% of the total value of the house is typically what you might make on like a wholesale fee for one of these rundown houses. So hope that if you're in a cheap market, 400. If you're in an expensive market, 1,000. If you're in a market in between, 600.
We hope this episode is inspiring you to take action. If you're thinking about becoming a real estate agent or an agent who wants to join an investor-friendly team, just hit me up on Instagram at @DefiedGuy, because we are growing our team in Denver, Seattle, San Diego, and Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, but also adding to our network in all 50 states. And if you didn't already know this, the Fi team provides a super supportive environment with one-on-one coaching, accountability, and ongoing training to help develop kick-ass, rock star, investor-friendly real estate agents. So hit me up on Instagram at @DefiedGuy, shoot me a DM, and we'll set up a time to chat. Can't wait to chat with you.
Yeah. And what kind of budget should people be expecting if they want to give this a shot?
Yeah. So, well, let's do the math real quick. So let's say 400 properties and times sending a postcard, 6 times, and like 55-cent postcard would be about $1,300 to execute that marketing strategy. That makes sense?
Totally does. Let's talk. Okay. So DealMachine, for those that haven't heard of it, what is DealMachine? How did you get that started? And yeah, we'll start with those.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was looking around on Zillow for houses that would cash flow, I didn't find any that would cash flow. So that's why I went looking for those old listings. But I also went to a meetup and they said, just totally look for rundown houses and they're not going to be listed for sale. But you want to catch somebody when something happens in their life where they need to sell that property and they'd prefer speed and convenience over the top price. So that's when I went and started looking for rundown houses. It's called Driving for Dollars. And there's not like I just was writing stuff down 2 months in. My stomach dropped when I saw one of these houses getting worked on that I knew was on my list. So I ran home, saw somebody had just bought it for a price that was higher than lower than what I would have offered. So I was like, I know this could have been a great first deal for me. And that's when I was like, oh man, I can't just do this manually because I'm not following up. So I need to just like find an app that would help me out, pin the house, send the mail. It wasn't an app yet. So I made it. And that's how DealMachine started 7 years ago. It was just for myself, just on my own phone, not meant to be a business. But the person who ran that meetup, her name's Brittany Wicks. She's like, oh, that's what you're using? I'll spend $1,000 to try any new marketing. How do I sign up? And I was like, you don't sign up. It's just on my phone. So I had to make a name and an icon and to put it on the app store so she could get it on her phone and then set up a payment processor so she could pay for mail. It was a free app. And she's just paying for mail. So that's like why DealMachine became a business, was just so she could get it on her phone. And the rest is kind of history. It just grew organically over the past, next 4 or 5 years. And we're 7 years in now. Help people close 10,000 deals in all 50 states. We don't close the deals ourselves, by the way. It's just it's a marketing tool for discovery and outreach to these motivated sellers.
Yeah. Yeah. So walk us through what how people can use DealMachine. What do they need to input all the way up until the end? Yeah.
So, I mean, at the most basic level, it's a map. And when you see a house, you can either pin the house on the map, or there's a feature where you can like point the camera at the house and it tells you what house you're looking at and who owns it. Press a button, it adds it to your list. And then immediately you could just start sending mail that repeats every 3 weeks 6 times. That's like the default. It's got the postcards already loaded in there. And also a remarkable new ability is there used to be this thing called skip tracing, where you'd press a button and get the contact info of somebody who owns a house. The term comes from court. If you were a criminal and you were going to go to court, but you missed your court date, a private investigator would have to track down the person who skipped their court date. That's why it's called skip tracing. but it's a term that we just use in real estate investing as well to go get the person's contact info. We don't have to do any buttons in DealMachine now. It's just there. So not only the owner, but the person who's renting it, it's also right there. So you could get a hold of either one. And so it tells you their age, their birthday, tells you their annual household income, and it tells you their phone numbers and emails, most importantly, and how much they use each one of those. So you could call them or email them that way. And I didn't even realize this, but I guess some agents, they like to call renters that are high income to like prospect to see if they can sell them a house. So that's like a new thing I'm hearing is going on as well. I don't know if you have any insight onto that, but I was very curious to hear that. But that's how you could use DealMachine to find these houses, find some deals.
Wow. That is so cool. I really, really like that. I know that I tried direct mail years ago, but it was such a wrong time for me. I was working in a skiff. I was in the military, so I couldn't even have access to any technology, like no phone, no Apple Watch. So people were calling and I could not answer. And by the time that I did answer, it was like time to go to sleep. People didn't want to talk then. They wanted to talk when they called me, when the lead was hot. Yeah. So I was like, this is just a waste of money for me right now. And I can definitely see how now like people hire like whole companies to do it. But yeah, with DealMachine, with a couple of clicks, you can send postcards. That is the way to go if the person has more time, than money. So I love that. Okay, so one property that you rented out, you did 4 BRRRRs, and then you created an entire app, DealMachine, to help millions of other investors. Is there anything that we didn't cover?
Well, so a few years into that, then I got my 2 years of business history. So then I could go get houses and mortgages on my own again. So I continued doing that. And then DealMachine grew so much. So I was like 9 properties in, and then I stopped buying for a while. And then I looked back over 4 years, cash flowed $70,000, after mortgage, taxes, insurance, and they appreciated almost like $1 million. And I was like, dang, it would have been really baller to have way more houses. So I started buying more houses again this year. And so that's been really great, I think, to get back into that after seeing and wishing I had taken more action. Because that's the thing I didn't really understand. The person I worked for, when he had rentals and he was trying to, guide me through how he did that, he said, these deals were back in 2009 when there was great deals after the crash. Not sure you could find these deals here now. But if you look at the rent, the Federal Reserve has like a graph of like what rents have done over the last 70 years. It always goes up. It literally never goes down. It stayed flat for part of 2008, but it didn't go down. And so I was like, man, the value of these homes, even though I can't get as good a deals as he did, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, doesn't matter. It's like, it's still going up in a lot of these Midwest markets that just kind of act like a bond. They don't fluctuate drastically like high price markets do. So that was kind of an eye opener for me looking back. And I was like, well, I thought he got great deals. I didn't think the deals I was getting at the time were really great, but if I could get more of them like now, it's like they're better than any deals you can get today. So it's just always a good time to buy. I think just find a great deal in any market is the takeaway rather than kind of feeling like you missed out.
Yes, because you'll always feel like you missed out. Comparison is the thief of joy, right? So you look at what your dad bought a property for, what your investor friends purchased properties for just 2-3 years ago. You'll always think, oh my gosh, I should have. But you can, and you can right now. And rents will continue to increase, appreciation as well, and you have a fixed rate mortgage if you get a fixed rate. But even if you get an ARM, you can still predict. Yeah. So, wow. Okay, cool. What's next for you?
Yeah. So, I'm still growing DealMachine and still growing my rental property. So I just made an offer on like a portfolio of 9 properties. And I'm sticking with single family because it's like what I know and what I want to exploit my knowledge that I have rather than try to always learn something new and complicate my life. I like had an Airbnb once, converted it back to just long-term rental because I didn't want a whole nother type of business to manage. If that makes sense. I want my business to serve me and allow me to have the free time and the mental clarity and free time And so I think doubling down on what I know is actually the way to do that. So I only have two businesses and they're kind of related. One is the long-term single family rentals, and then the other one is the software company. So we've definitely innovated a lot, adding a lot of that contact info that you can get unlimited access to this year. So continuing to innovate on the DealMachine side, and also just I want to get to 20 properties. I might be able to do it before the end of the year. We'll see how that offer on 9 properties gets to.
Nice. Good luck. With the data, the information of the property owners, the renter, does it change state to state, or is that in all 50 states?
It's in all 50 states. Yeah.
Nice.
It's pretty wild, especially if you have rentals and you're looking at it and you're like, oh, holy cow, these are all my current renters.
Wow. That's super, super cool. Is there anything that I didn't cover before we head to the final 4?
Let's do the final 4.
Heck yeah. All
the
right.
final 4.
Question number 1. Kick us off, Allie. Okay. Thanks for asking, Allie.
Is that Craig?
Yeah, that was Craig. What book are you currently reading right now?
I just finished the Elon Musk book by Walter Isaacson. So he's a great biographer. He only actually, does books on really important people. Like Steve Jobs, for example, was the book that he published right after Steve died. So just made it through that and was incredibly inspired by Elon's. Oh my gosh! Like every chapter is like a whole new company, and it's like, wow, like how is he even doing all this? Because it goes against my tendency to focus on one thing and to limit myself from getting shiny object syndrome. So it was a good counterbalance to that. But then also like Elon always disregards existing rules or kind of limiting beliefs. For example, like they're building these rockets and NASA would use these parts that cost, like 10 times more than a similar part for the automotive industry. And he's like, but why? It's like actually the same part. And so that's why like SpaceX started like just building a lot of these parts in-house, because none of the actual manufacturers would sell it for a reasonable price. And he needed it to be reusable to make space travel an affordable thing that we can do. So, and I think that was just like a refreshing element of Elon for me to learn, was to, if there's a rule, know specifically who made that rule, and to like pretty much disregard it unless you discover on your own that that's actually a good rule. So that's why they blew up a lot of rockets at the beginning, was because they just, would have never been able to make an affordable rocket had they followed all these existing rules and how much things cost. Then they started building their own stuff and like taking shortcuts and blowing stuff up until they figured out the right balance of like, we can make it affordable, but we can't cut on these corners. So he's like, that was like a big theme through the book that I really took away.
Wow. And anybody can take that message away and implement that into their life too. Yeah, just because there's been a rule of thumb or, a no-go, any left-right parameters, test it. Who told you that? Who told them that? And why should you continue carrying on that myth, that belief that, that could be completely inaccurate or only applied to people during that time? It might not apply now.
I mean, just like working at this company for an entrepreneur who had 20 employees, that seems so intimidating to build something of that magnitude and to hold the responsibility of 20 people. But it's kind of like, well, in first principles thinking, like this guy is just a human. And just because my parents didn't have anything like that, and I'm not like cut from that cloth, I think that I could break down this problem and do it myself anyway. So I think that's just like a limiting belief people might be having, is like, well, can I have the responsibility of managing these rentals? But it's just like a problem that can be solved with what he calls like first principles thinking, where you just kind of like think about it in its basic elements of physics, or whatever. I don't know how you would say physics applies to owning a business, but you kind of get what I'm saying, right? It's like, you are a human being. You can figure out how this is done.
Cool. Okay. Question number 2. What is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
I love the advice from a mentor I had for several years named Dan Martell. And his advice was to buy back your time. And I had a business with probably 12 employees, a couple million in revenue, and I did not have an executive assistant. So he said, well, if you're making, a few million in revenue, your time has value. And so if you're running errands to go get dry cleaning, or if you're checking your emails, sorting through your mail, I mean, you could pay somebody to do that. That might be like what he calls a $10 an hour task, right? Could be accomplished by somebody doing that price. And because my value of my time was higher, he really pushed me that I needed an executive assistant, which felt weird. Like, I remember the first time I was thinking about hiring somebody to clean my house, I was like, this feels weird. Like, I'm like above doing this work, when my whole life, doing like hard work was a part of what made me me and what my parents wanted to instill in me. But it's not that you're too good to do the work, but you can actually pay somebody who enjoys that work, give them livelihood, free your brain up to do other things that could create more value for them and other people on your team as well as yourself. So that's the best advice I received, was buy back your time.
I really like that. And I interviewed on another podcast on The Agent Goldmine, I interviewed an agent who's like crushing it, Gogo Becky. And she said, with like a simple formula, just take your salary of what, or not salary, just income of what you made last year, divide it by, I believe it was 2080, but pretty much like hours worked during that year. And that's your hourly pay. If you can pay someone else less to do anything, open your mail, like you said, hang up Christmas lights, whatever it is, hire that out. So she has on her washer dryer a sticky note that says $450. And she's like, every time I go to even try to do my laundry, I have to walk away saying, no, this load of laundry is costing me $450. Because during this hour, 30 minutes, whatever time, I could be using that to just increase my income.
That's really good to actually write the value down. So that way you could feel how much money you're losing in her case. Very smart.
Yeah. Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm saving, just because I don't have to pay someone $30 or whatever it is, I'm saving that money. But no, you're losing money because of the opportunity cost there.
Mm-hmm.
Question number 3, what is your why?
Yeah. So my why is to continue building myself, because your business can't grow if you are holding it back. And so what I mean by that is, the first 5 years of my company's existence, thankfully, we experienced growth. But then we had like a peak of growth and actually a bit of a retraction for the next couple of years. And a huge reason for that was because I had no marketing team. Our company grew through word of mouth and through people who post YouTube videos on how to invest in real estate would recommend us. But we were doing no marketing ourselves. And so that was an example of my lack of experience personally was holding the business back, because I'm ultimately the one in charge of setting up the team and deciding who does what. So just the personal growth is what's really exciting to me. And of course, I'm also like financially motivated. Like, the whole reason I got into business was because I noticed kids at my high school, like their parents bought them nicer cars than I had. And I mean, I'm thankful I even had a car, but I just noticed those things. I'm very attracted to those things. So, I like to say personal growth, and also like, I'm not afraid to, buy like a nice car and really enjoy that. So those are 2 reasons that keep me going.
I like that. I can resonate a lot.
Yeah. If you're not growing, what are you doing? I always want to keep growing.
The last question, I actually want to add an extra question. So before we go into the random question, our question number 3.5 is, I realize you're really, really good at focusing on one thing or a few things, DealMachine and single family long-term rentals. And that is a struggle that a lot of people have, no matter what industry they're in, whatever business owner industry they're in, or just investing. They hear about something new, it's working out for their friend, and they want to dip their toes in and try 101 different things. How do you have any like rules of thumb, or how do you think about, because doing the same thing over and over again is very, very boring. And I think that's what drives people away. Oh, single families, cool, it's working, but I'm bored. Let me try Airbnb. Let me try commercial. Let me try hotel. How do you stop yourself and continue to do just what you know?
I think you can allow yourself to try it, because how else would you discover new things that you like if you don't try new things. But for me, I have a business partner, and I thought if he was working on another business that I wasn't involved with, how would that make me feel? So I would never want to make him feel like I'm doing less work, I'm not as invested, because then the business that we have that's great wouldn't get as much attention overall because we think the other person is not doing their part, and that could build up resentment. So we're 7 years into a partnership. Partnerships are hard to make last a long time. And so I think that's a key for us, is that we both like don't do any other types of businesses, even though we're the type of people that would love to dive into something new. But him too, I know it. I've heard him talk about it. So it came up for me again as a reminder on like the hobby side, because what's the point of financial freedom if you don't really enjoy it? A lot of people want to spend more time with their family. I personally don't have any kids or, a spouse. So I like to dive into hobbies that I really enjoy. So two that I got into this year was fitness, and also joined a entry-level race car driving series that's local here in Austin, where we drive these like $15,000 cars and we do 18 races per year. So I used to get lapped. Then I got to coach and practice a lot. And I was in the running to win first place from the beginner division. And so I was also simultaneously doing a bodybuilding competition. So I was losing weight to actually compete. And I was low energy. I had to stop practicing as much. But the bigger problem was I lost 16 pounds, and I forgot that me and my car together need to weigh 2,300 pounds. And so in the weekend in November, where it was critical that I finished top 3 in order to win first place at the end of the year, I actually got weighed at the end of that race and was disqualified for being 4 pounds under. And so I think that's just an example where if you try to do too many things, it's very difficult to be excellent at any of them. So I think that applies for business as well. And at least for a mere mortal like me, maybe Elon Musk can do it. But I think that's like 1% of the population. And for me, I know that focusing just makes it a lot easier for me to be excellent. And my, competitors, quote unquote, I think get distracted by other things, which is good for me because I'm just focused on one thing. So I can end up doing that better over the long term.
Wow. I am so sorry you got disqualified. Holy crap. That must have hurt.
Oh, that's okay. It was something I learned from. Painful experiences are what I always remember. So I'll never do that again. It'll always be in the back of my mind.
Wow. Okay. And then question number 4 is usually a random one. And before we started recording, I realized that you're a beast at random questions. I almost want to ask you to my random question generator. What, you know what? In the beginning, actually, I already know the answer. Originally, I was going to ask you cats or dogs. Which one do you lean more toward? And you said that before we started recording.
Yep. Well, cats, because it would cramp my lifestyle to take a dog out to the bathroom 3 times a day. I'm trying to get that low maintenance lifestyle.
That's true. Cats are also, though, like, you still have to hire a rover whenever you want to go vacation somewhere. It's almost like just as much.
No, it's not just as much, because I don't need to take them out 3 times a day, which is like way more frequent than going on vacations.
That's true.
They could say like 3 days without anybody coming in, at least probably a week.
Wow. I guess if you have one of those robo litter boxes.
Yeah. Or just put out enough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You seem like you have a dog.
No, I'm actually allergic to all animals. My wife has 2 cats, so I am a stepmother.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But cool, dude. Is there anything else that oh my gosh. Well, first of all, again, Instagram, D Lecko, find him, find DealMachine also on Instagram. Hit him up with any questions. How else can people find you?
Yeah, the podcast is a primary focus for me. I used to be really bad this year when I first started, but now we've done over 100 episodes. And so the retention has been gone up from like 60 to like 95 in many episodes. So I've really been able to hone that in and help people out who want to quit their job and replace their income with wholesaling real estate. So DealMachine podcast, And then I mentioned that episode 78 is a great one if you want to look at all the motivated seller lists and which direction you should approach them in.
Perfect. Thank you so much, David, for coming on the show. And for everyone else, if you haven't given us a 5-star review, go ahead and do that now. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
And that was the show. What did you think, Allie? Oh, thanks for asking, Allie. I thought that this show was amazing. Okay, enough talking to myself. This show is so good. I hope that you all admired his ability to stick in his 2 lanes, his business lane of building an entire app, an entire business, DealMachine, as well as focusing on what he knows and getting even better at that, his long-term single-family rentals. It sounds boring, and over time, the more you do it, it can become boring, just like anything that you're doing. Say you're going on a diet, eating chicken breast and brown rice over and over again. That is so boring, but consistency is what pays. And I think that is the overall theme of this episode. So give David Lecko a follow on Instagram, DLecko, DealMachine, and listen to his podcast, DealMachine. Hope you guys got some value out of this. If you did, please give this episode a 5-star review. Appreciate you. See you in the next one.
That's it for this episode of Investify. We hope that these nuggets of real estate wisdom lead to more savvy financial planning and a clearer path towards financial freedom. For more content like this, subscribe to the show at investify.com. Don't forget to leave a rating and share it with your friends. Together, we can transform more real estate newbies into successful and clever investors. Thank you so much for listening. See you on the next one.